Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Max Wrestling Podcast, Beyond the Max slash On the Mic but Mike. I am your host, Mike Larkin, and joining to me today is the man behind the CEO of Shane Taylor Promotions, the baddest of all time, one of my favorites going today, Mr. Shane Taylor. Shane, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate that.
You're very welcome. First and foremost, I got to say something. As a young 13-year-old kid watching Ring of Honor, my first ever event for Ring of Honor was Sports Plus on Long Island, New York, watching Jay Lethal take on Loki. I'm talking about Homicide and Colt Cabana, Bryan Danielson and James Gibson for the Ring of Honor title. And to see where we are now with people like yourself, I got to say, it's a great evolution from Ring of Honor. You know what I'm saying? And you are absolutely killing it. I got to give you much love and respect.
Hey, man, thank you for that. It's absolutely incredible, like you mentioned, to see the growth, progression, the ability to for Ring of Honor to sort of just reload every single year. You know what I mean? Every time a crop of talent like that leaves, and there's no really replacing guys like that, but to see other guys step up, other guys come in and sort of year after year after year, ROH really never lose a step is great to see. And we're just going to keep continuing to do that.
I got to say this. What's funny about it, like I mentioned Jay Lethal, around this time period in 2005, he was the Pure Champion. Now we got guys like Jonathan Gresham in the Pure Championship. Also, I kind of equated to when I first saw you because I'm watching yourself and the Limitless One himself, Mr. Keith Lee. I see y'all come in. I see what you're doing with War Machine, Hanson and Rowe. And I'm just like,
Right.
God dang, the versatility, your size, your stature, and the way y'all moved, I got to say that was some of the crisp work. And that is one of my favorite tag team feuds in Ring of Honor.
Thank you, man. It was really satisfying for us because not only did we go out there with two guys that we know and trust, you know what I mean, but there wasn't a lot of expectation for us, right? People were overlooking us. That is the last thing you want to do with all four of us. You know what I mean? Me personally, those who know me know I work best when I have a chip on my shoulder. So for people to give me that was a plus. You know what I mean? And then of course you're in there with three guys that you respect, and so everybody wants to bring their A+ game because no one wants to be the weak link in the match and let anybody down. So you get four very determined, very talented, very hungry individuals, and we went and we go out there and stole the show when nobody thought we could. So that was great.
I look at it from my standpoint, like as a youngin, just watching, like I mentioned, the evolution of Ring of Honor. Then I see people like yourself and Keith come in. This is where I equate you to as well, because whether you're a team or whether you're singles, like your singles run, you're doing the damn thing, Ring of Honor. He's doing his thing in WWE. I think whether you're together or you're apart, I think you two have that something special, that little spark about you that I really do watch. And like you so eloquently put, Shane, the chip on your shoulder, and it shows in both of your respective works.
Oh, for sure. That's because we are sort of like a yin and yang to each other, right? Now we do have a lot of similarities when it comes to mentality, right? Um, Both of us want to push ourselves to the absolute limit. Both of us want to be the best. Keith is a little calmer than I am. I'm a little more volatile than he is. Um, but that's what made the tag team great, and that's what makes our friendship great because we sort of balance each other out in that way. Um, I know what to say to get him motivated. He knows what to say to get me motivated, which isn't much. You know what I mean? Like, all he's got to say is, he said that he was better than you, right? Oh, word. All right. Like, you know what I mean? And then we're off and rolling. But yeah, that's a special guy there. And I'm so proud of all the stuff he's doing.
Hey, look at it like this, because you're talking about your temper and talking about oh word. Look at it like this. There was a famous man in wrestling, and God rest his soul. I'm talking about the late great Eddie Guerrero. He had that Latino heat. So I mean, if he had that heat, he had that spark and had that attitude. I mean, it shows within your work as well. But it's a good thing though. It's passion.
Thank you. And you know what I mean? Anytime you're mentioned in any sort of sentence with a legend like that, it's high praise. But yeah, man, like and in today's world, it's all about perspective too, right? That same passion can be seen as a bonus, as a plus for 99 people, right? But that one person's going to take it as a negative, and that's going to be the story, right? So, um, for me, I'm glad that it comes out as passion, as something positive, because that's what I want. I am very passionate, and I believe very much in the things that I do, the things that I say, and why I do and say them. So, to me, it's all a positive.
That's what I like about you too, is because I'm going to say this right now, and I think you can agree with me with this sentiment. Shane, when it comes to yourself, you know your worth, you know what's up, and you know how you want to portray yourself and how you want to go into not just the match, but your overall persona. And I think that really is what's just the spark about you, and that really exemplifies you as a whole. And that's also one of the things that draws a person like myself, and as a fan and the viewer perspective to yourself, because it just shows with your work and your overall personality, and I think that shines through.
Thank you. That's people say the best versions or the best characters, right, are yourselves just turned up.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, all I did was really just go back into who I was before, marriage and kids, right? So this is really not even that long ago, so we're talking 6 years ago, right? Uh, the person that I was, the mindset, my choices, things of that sort. I wasn't the calmest person, you know what I mean? So it's transitioning from being that guy into being the businessman, the family man, but still keeping all of those goals the same.
Agreed. And I mean, you've talked about your upbringing before in many previous interviews as well. I look at it from a standpoint like I'm just a kid. I'm going to tell you right now, as a kid growing up in the suburbs of Long Island, East Essex, New York, right? It's a nice neighborhood, but I also look at it because everybody has this type of neighborhood. One of the things that really infiltrated, and I was talking to one of my buddies about this because as a young man, I graduated high school 10 years ago, right? This year would be my 10-year reunion, but with all this COVID stuff happening, it's a mess, but I digress. I look at it from a stance of like you see and you're aware of your surroundings. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, one of the big things that a lot of people don't realize about where I grew up on Long Island is, god dang, man, I've seen so many of my friends, my fellow classmates overdose in drugs. And I think for myself, and I think you can agree, from upbringings, from where you are to where you are now, and how you talk about your temper, you talk about this, you talk about that. I think it just shows the evolution, not just you as a person, but the evolution of a man. And no, I'm not quoting Elton John, Rocky Five. There's a pop culture reference for you. But god dang,
Right.
man, I really think it shows within your perspective and your character.
Man, and that's the thing. I try to present Shane Taylor Promotions as an American success story, right? Someone who came from nothing, who is now achieving everything, right? But the thing is, when you're dealing with professional wrestling, for the longest time, when people do business, right, they only tend to market to the majority, right? Uh, and that's a decent business outlook because you want to cast the widest net possible, right? But for me, I was always the little guy growing up, so I never want to forget about that person, right? So my strategy was, well, I want to be able to tell that story too. So let me tell the same story you're telling, but from their perspective, because there's so many fans, especially when you talk about the African American community, that wrestling companies forget about. They forget, like, you have black fans too. You know what I mean? And they don't want to see the same characters. They don't want to see the same stereotypes. They don't want to see the same stories. They want to be able to see something different, and especially in today's world, they want to be able to see something positive. They're bombarded with negative imagery about themselves and our culture, in movies, music, everything. But wrestling is supposed to be that escape. Wrestling is supposed to be that dream, right? Cool. Then let's show them something positive. Let's show them, you know, uh, a lot of the things that they want to see, not only in themselves but in their communities. Let's show them that, and that's what Shane Taylor Promotions is all about.
And that's what I love about you too. And now for me, I look at it like this. I was raised by a great mother who always told me to treat everybody, as you would want to be treated and really just respecting one another. And I look at it like this. So many great African American talents like yourself in wrestling. I look at people like Mark Henry. I look at people like the late great Junkyard Dog. I look at a lot of people that came, even Big Cat Ernie Ladd. So it's one of those things where I think gentlemen like that who've paved the way, and I'll even go one further, Ron Simmons, Farouk, you are doing a lot of those men proud, and you're doing great for the African American community. And I think you definitely should be proud. I just want to let you know that with the utmost sincere respect, sir.
Thank you. And that's the goal. You know what I mean? To be able to show unity, group economics, the ability to work together and not next person off at the knees and step on them to get ahead. These are things that that we need to hear and we need to see. You know what I mean? And so the ability of me and my guys to show this and showcase this, especially because it's what we really feel and believe, that makes it even better, right? And we want to entertain everybody and have everybody be able to relate to what we're doing, because everybody can understand, not having your hard work valued, or not being the hand-picked favorite, especially when you come in from, poor backgrounds. Like, people can understand and relate to overcoming the odds, doing the things that people told you that you couldn't and shouldn't do, right? And so that's what we want people to relate to. And at the same time, we know who we are, and uh we know what our jobs are, right? And we know that we were those kids watching TV, watching wrestling, waiting to see somebody like us do this stuff. And so that's what we're trying to do, is influence our peers, make our elders proud, and influence that next generation to say, oh, okay, this is an option. I can do this.
I also look at it from a stance of, and I'm going to make a hip hop reference. I think for me, when I look at yourself, I'm going to name two infamous and pretty much famous roles in the hip hop community. You're kind of like Ice Cube and Crazy Bone. Until we rich, you got your mind right, you got your grind right, you got to keep going. But you also kind of got that swag about you where you're like Nas and Puff Daddy. You can hate me now, but I won't stop now. Is that a relative statement in a way with how you portray yourself? Because you got a little bit of that
That's
flavor and swag about you, Shane.
Listen, that's probably the perfect way to put it. I'm a guy who tells the truth, right? And if you come from where I'm from, and you know my mindset, you're gonna agree with me, and I'll probably be your favorite wrestler. If you don't have that mindset and you have no idea what I'm talking about, I could come off as abrasive, brash, maybe even arrogant. But at the same time, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? So that could rub folks the wrong way as well. And either way, my mindset is this: you can pay to see me win, great, or you can pay to see me lose, that's fine. But either way, you're paying. But more than likely, I'm probably going to beat your favorite wrestler up. So it is what it is. Just enjoy the ride.
Oh, of course. And I think that's what a lot of people in this life we take. We take that ride. And sometimes it may be bumpy along the way, but god dang, there's the finish line. And I think you've hit that finish line. I think you were also eloquently talking about, people like, you go on, you watch your wrestlers, you watch some of your favorite wrestlers on TV, and they say, hey, they look like me. I can do this. You look at guys like Mick Foley on that feud with The Rock back in '99 when he becomes a WWE champion. You look at guys like the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, God rest his soul, have that body type, have that little look about them that you're like, okay, it's not the typical wrestler look, but god dang, man, if they could do it, I could do it. So there's a lot of inspirations from legendary standpoints to now that I think you're also equating with people that were born in the 2000s, mid 2000s, that you're really inspiring and encouraging and having people have that outlook about professional wrestling that really transpires.
And that's what we're trying to do, man. All of this is about inspiring and progress, right? Yeah, that's there are these misnomers and this sort of stereotype on what people feel and think a champion looks like, or feel and think what a star looks like. And you could be 6'4", jacked with abs, and all that is great. That's fantastic. That doesn't make you a better fighter. It just doesn't. Um, that doesn't make you more talented. You know what I mean? It may make the ladies drool more. That's great. You know what I mean? But that doesn't make you the best. And I think Ring of Honor has a proven track record of having champions that didn't fit that mold, that didn't fit that corporate image, that fit that rebellious sort of mentality when it came to, look, it doesn't matter what you look like. Can you be the best? And can you dominate? When you look at guys like Takeshi Morishima or Samoa Joe, bigger guys, or you look at a Aries, smaller guys, Punk, skinnier guys, whoever it is, right? When you look at the women that they had there, we're not talking about divas, and this is no disrespect to anybody. This is just what Ring of Honor did. We're not talking about divas. We're talking about Sarah Del Rey, the best women's wrestler in the world at that time. You see what I'm saying? So we're talking about completely changing the mold about what people think a wrestling star can be or what they can do. So that's exactly the mindset that I take into this. When me and Keith formed PBK, the Pretty Boy Killers, it was about killing that mentality, killing that stereotype that you think a star can only be this or can only look like this, when surprise, they look like us and we're going to outperform on your roster every single night.
First and foremost, I gotta say, first and foremost, once more, I apologize, but god dang, man, I love you for that statement because here's why. Like you mentioned, the great Takeshi Morishima had the build, kind of reminded you like a Terry Bam Bam Gordy, right? He did the infamous backdrop driver. Love the matches with him and Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, when Daniel Bryan got that detached retina. Dude was a hoss. Dude could work, and he was a beast. And like you mentioned, so many great champions and people like Sarah Del Rey. Like when I was a kid, and I told this, I know you were just on her show, Sassy Steppy, right? I said, look, you have girls like yourself on the independent circuit, right? You got girls that are actually given time to put in the work. And as I said, I love Trish Stratus, Lita, and Mickey James and all these talents at the time. But god dang, man, when you're just reduced to 4 minutes, it's like, ugh. And then I see Shimmer and matches with Sarah Del Rey. I remember watching Sarah Del Rey and Daisy Hayes do their thing at Sports Plus on Long Island. I remember seeing girls like Rain come in and so many girls. You give them the time to showcase themselves, and Sarah Del Rey being the badass that she is, doing her thing now, coaching with the WWE. Those are just some clinics. Those are just some matches that really make the hair on your neck stand up, to put it like that, because it's just good. It's the physicality that goes into those matches.
Right. And you can tell not only her greatness from the matches that she's put on, but look at who she's inspired now. You talked about her coaching. Look at who she's been able to mold
Right.
and put in front of the world. Now some of the best wrestlers on the planet, right? We've seen what Bayley and Sasha and Charlotte and all these women have done. And so that's a direct credit to her mentality and the ability for her to break that mold and have that rebellious, independent attitude and pass that along to the generations after her.
And going to the women's division for a second, because you were talking about Ring of Honor encompassing that too, tying in with Sarah Del Rey, like, god dang, man, you mentioned the coaching, like with the many talents that we've seen for the women's division in WWE, but you look at the talents that have come from the Mae Young Classic that we've seen in Shimmer, and we have Serena Deeb now doing her thing as far as NWA, AEW, that whole tie in there. But dude, you also look at people like Shimmer, you look at companies like that, you see the international growth with people in ICW, whole nine from the UK standpoint. Then you also see what the women's division has done for Women of Honor and the champions that we've seen from Japan and the Stardom promotion. Like those collabs, those relationships really encompasses and introduces the world to a lot of great talent that we've never seen. And it's absolutely wonderful and a breath of fresh air to see a lot of these new crops come in.
Man, you said it all. And that's what it is, man. The platform, the time, and the opportunity. People, when you have a message or you're trying to prove a point, a lot of people can be very stuck to their old ways and very standoffish when it comes to the sport. But that just goes to show, when you have people who are dedicated to proving something and you give them the opportunity to do so, look at how much success they can have. That's just proof in the pudding.
100%. I got to say this before, since you were also talking about, you could be big and jack, whatever, that's great. But, in a fight, I'm going to say it to you like this. I'm going to make a video game comparison. You could be big and jack and swole as hell, but man, at the end of Mike Tyson's Punch Out, once you get to Mike Tyson, it's over, to make a video game reference. Going back to Mike Tyson Punch Out, if I could take it back to the 80s for a second.
Listen,
hey,
the latest example of that, Anthony Joshua, one of my favorite boxers in the world. You can look like him. That's fantastic. But you're going to run into a cat like Andy Ruiz at some point. And that's, you see what I'm saying? It's not a guarantee you're about to walk through this dude. Don't overlook me. Don't think I'm not going to be a star, because you do. I'm going to put you on your ass. And you know what I mean? Like that's just the truth of it.
It's the old, it may be cliche, but it's very apropos in a lot of circumstances. The bigger they are, the harder they fall, right?
I mean, yeah, and people say that, and I always talk about, well, no one finishes that or asks the other side of the question. What if they don't fall?
True.
You know what I mean? Okay. Then you're just out there. You know what I mean? But if you can do it, then yeah, you know what I mean? But man, it's just it gets frustrating at times, because you want to be the best, and it's always frustrating when you feel like there's a cap on your greatness, and trying to break through that and shatter that glass ceiling it is what I've always been about.
I got to say, talk about greatness. I'm going to put on that word here. As a kid growing up on Long Island, New York, I mentioned Sports Plus, Lake Grove, Long Island, watching Ring of Honor. There's the Hammerstein Ballroom. There's many different wrestling events from the Nassau Coliseum. And this is where I take it to you, sir. ROH, Madison Square Garden, G1 Supercard. Man, you were doing your thing with Bully Ray, the New York Street Fight. We have Mark Haskins up in there, Flip Gordon, Juice Robinson. I got to ask you, because I loved watching it on pay-per-view, being to get into the mecca that is Madison Square Garden for Ring of Honor, that is huge, and I love that show.
Man, it was awesome. I actually want to credit Bully Ray for that, because he pulled some strings and was able to make that happen for me. So shouts out to him. But yeah, I mean, you can't really get any better than being able to say I'm one of the few, probably, thousand of people that have been able to perform in Madison Square Garden. I mean, that's incredible.
Also, got to look at it from this. Besides the fact that the match was badass and brutal, and I really enjoyed the work and the storytelling that you guys encompassed in that bout, I look at it like this: from a kid growing up on Long Island watching Ring of Honor, this will take people back when they worked the Deer Park Community Center in like 2005, 2006, very briefly, because Sports Plus was closing, right? And I'm like, God
Right.
dang, this building is hot. And I mean, a lot of people can attest to that with some indie promotions that they've been to. To see it come from that, Shane, to see where y'all are doing with Madison Square Garden, you have no idea how happy I was just to see it. Not just, I know you guys for the performance, but from a fan perspective, because a lot of people, we've seen TNA, Impact Wrestling do their stuff on Long Island. We've seen WWE, we've seen along with New York, but we have not seen to that level with Ring of Honor. I know you guys, ever since its inception 2002 to when you came in, it's full circle for Ring of Honor.
Absolutely. And that's just a testament to, the hard work of guys like Kerry Silken and the pioneers that helped pave the way, but also the new generation of management that we have. When you're talking about guys like Joe Koff and Greg Gilliland, guys that are really putting this on their back, and the crop of talent that we have now that want bigger and better things. So we're trying to grow it, and we're trying to make it happen for our fans, of course, but for ourselves to be able to carry on those traditions and those legacies of the guys that came before us.
Also look at it from a stance too. Like for me, you also get the nice mix of here's some Ring of Honor over here, here's some New Japan. Like you got a lot of great Japanese talents from Kazuchika Okada was on that card. I'm talking about the Switchblade Jay White. It was a nice mix for people as well because I've always said this and I've always enjoyed Japanese wrestling, whether it be the UK Japanese, and we talked about earlier that international showcase. Those guys stepped it up as well, so we had a nice little balance on that card.
Oh, for sure. And there's nothing that we like more than giving our fans that change of style and that variety. So having them there, putting on the excellent matches that they did, was just a plus.
Also, I'm going to say this about you, and we're going to come up to current stuff. We're going to shoot the breeze here on some pro wrestling. But you, sir, Soldiers of Savagery, I got to say, one of the baddest things, and I love that as well. Besides even Shane Taylor Promotions, I'm talking about Soldiers of Savagery. That is a nice unit with yourself and those guys. Those guys are killing it, whether it be from Jasper, whether it be from Moses, whether yourself. That is a nice little unit, and I really enjoy that stuff.
I mean, that's why I got them, man. You know what I mean? They were at the ROH dojo just looking for a chance. I'm a person that, not only sees talent, but I like to think about the future, right? Like, how can I mold these guys, see what they do, like-minded individuals, intelligent guys, college-educated guys, guys that have a sense of self, have a sense of community. I can take guys like that, and we can change the world, right? They say that a general is only as good as the soldiers who are willing to fight for him, right? And when you've got soldiers like that, that makes me 5-star.
I got to say, first and foremost, because you put over the ROH dojo and those guys looking for an opportunity. Those guys are amazing. I've seen girls like Stella Gray, who have done their thing in Women of Honor, come from the ROH dojo. I'm glad that you mentioned that because I think one of the best schools out there is the Ring of Honor dojo, and you got to give much love to Cheeseburger as well.
I mean, you got to. You mean, and you just said it all right there.
And I think for me, I just appreciate too, just going back to the dojo for a second, like as a kid, again, New York, there's so many wrestling schools. You have the Ring of Honor dojo. I think it's great that we see a lot of schools opening. And it's great to see that we allowed to see a lot of with these facilities. And I'm like, this is how it's done. This is just going in, putting in the work and just getting your opportunity. And that's why I love it because I think a lot of people, we've come from the days, and I remember watching MTV True Life with the backyard wrestling and people doing stuff like that. But I think just for me, it doesn't just equate to wrestling, but everything in life. If you go in, work your ass up, train the hard way, you will see results, and I think that's what it really is encompassed by the ROH dojo.
Yeah, that's the mold that they set. That's the program that they have their guys and girls in, and that's the role that they play, and that's what we do. Um, so for me, I mean, you can take those lessons and apply them to just about anywhere in life, and they'd all fit.
I think another thing that really does fit, and that's you as the Ring of Honor television champion. Because, dude, when you won that, I'm not gonna lie, I was overjoyed because, like, I've seen a lot of great talents like Eddie Edwards and so many people come through the ROH Television Championship tournament, Jeff Cobb, the whole nine. Dude, when you won it, I'm not gonna lie, I was very happy for you because watching from the tag team to single, you killed it as the Ring of Honor television champion. Talk about that run and just talk about winning that because that is a prestigious title in Ring of Honor and it showcases your talent and your worth, sir.
I mean, yeah, it at the time, like, it was knowing the history of Ring of Honor, right? Um, and me trying to be that leader of the next generation that I want to be. I looked at the 20-year history, uh, and I saw the only African American males to be able to win that championship were Kenny King and Jay Lethal. I wanted to add my name to that list. Those are my peers. Those are guys that I look up to. Those are guys that I respect. And if I'm chasing legacy, then clearly I would have to achieve that in order to even have a chance at meeting or surpassing those legacies. So to be able to uh, win that, to be able to capture the world's attention with the Jeff Cobb matches, with my UK tours, and to be able to come in and then win that at War of the Worlds was fantastic, And then, I started to see, okay, they're not promoting me like the other champions, that they're not showcasing me like the other champions. They're not bringing in the top talent in the world from all around the world for me to have these mega matches with, right? So I started to get frustrated. And at the same time, I was seeing that they were promoting everybody else. They were promoting, the Bullet Clubs, the NWAs, all these other people. So I was like, you know what? All right. No one's going to believe in you more than you. So you might as well just do the job and promote yourself.
I think that's so eloquently put as well because, like you stated, with guys like Kenny King and Jay Lethal, again, veterans in their own right. I mean, but like you were talking about the Bullet Club, like Adam Cole, prime example, when he was a TV champ, you had Bobby Fish in there, you had Punishment Martinez, you had Silas Young, you had so many people, Christopher Daniels, so many veterans and people that are really encompassed in huge things that we've seen in professional wrestling. Then you got yourself coming in, Mr. Baddest of all time, and then just wreaking havoc. And then we got Dragon Lee, who's the champ now. It really, told a story and it told great things with you as champion and just the overall rise of the television championship that was encompassed in those matches.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted to sort of take the same path that Jay did. I wanted to break his records. I wanted to break his championship defense record. I wanted to break his days record. But more importantly, I wanted every single time I defended that to feel like a world championship match. I wanted that to be the fight that people went home talking about. I wanted those matches to be the ones that stole the show every single time and sort of challenge, just the way Jay did, the level at which people saw the TV title and the world title. Because for me, my thing was, in order to be the best, you've got to be in there with the baddest. You know what I mean? And if the baddest has this chance, that makes this one the one to have, So that's the mindset that I took into every match. And I feel like with every single championship defense, no matter who it was against, we went out there and we proved that.
I got to say this as well. You did mention Jay Lethal there as someone a veteran as he is. I got to say, I don't know if it's me, but it's the little nuances. It's the little things that he does that's so crisp, not just in the ring. Like from watching his tenure in Ring of Honor the first go round, and then, as the champ, House of Truth. Like when he was doing the stuff in TNA with Ric Flair, talking about, his mom's got a tear in his eye from Elizabeth, New Jersey. Like that just stuff is so moving, and he really has the way to just capture and incorporate, not just from the in-ring style, but just his promos, man. Like every time Jay spoke, you could feel it, and it's just something that you really can go into, and that's and I think you can agree with me that you love about Jay Lethal.
I mean, because he speaks from the heart.
Yep.
You know, so when you have a guy like that who still is reserved, but that comes out when he speaks and that comes out in his performances, you know, you can't help but be sort of captivated by that. Um, and I think we both share that sentiment when it comes to what we do in ring and expressing that. I think the difference between the two of us is our personalities outside of it. He is more reserved. He is less combative. I'm not. You know what I mean? Um, if Jay, you know, is faced with the problem, he'll figure out a way to get past the problem. I go through the problem. You know what I mean? The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. That's my personality. So we sort of mirror but differ in those ways.
And Mr. Taylor, I'm going to say the word for you since you have not said it. So pretty much what Shane Taylor is saying here, people, is he likes to mollywop through people. There you go. I said it for you. You like the mollywop at times there, Mr. Shane?
That is a great word. That is a great word that I picked up in my time in Pennsylvania and PA. That's the only time I've heard it, and it just stuck.
Hey,
Mollywop is the word.
hey, man, I'll be honest with you. As a New Yorker on Long Island, I may have been through some Bay Shore, Long Island time, and friends who went to school like 10 minutes from me, and they would say
Mm-hmm.
mollywop, and I'm like, okay, that's the word. I don't even know why, but it's just so cool when it just comes out. It flows right off the tongue, mollywop, instead of like, beaten, battered, bloodied, or what have you, mollywop. Okay. It's
Hey,
self-explanatory in a way with its meaning. Go ahead.
listen, it encapsulates it perfectly, right? And you're like, damn, he got mollywopped. In your head, you already have an image of what getting mollywopped looks like, and you're like, damn, all right. Like if someone like you could say someone got beat, and you're like, yeah, but they could have just won. They, you know what I mean, could have just lost. It could have been close. When you say they got mollywopped, you're like, damn, that's definitive. You know what I mean?
Yes, and it kind of reminds me of, all right, this is again my youth coming in and just my nerdiness. When you would play NBA ballers, and one of the things that they would say when they were talking about going to the net, dunking the pumpkin. That's what that is. It's dunking the pumpkin is what it is. You remember old NBA ballers phenom with Chauncey on the cover and Stephon Marbury?
I did. I don't. I remember playing. What was it though? Had the dude with the fro. It was like NBA Street or something like
Yeah,
that.
NBA Street. Yep.
Um,
NBA
yeah.
Jam.
So, yeah. The
Oh,
it had like Bonafide and the other dude with the fro, and they were just like those games were fun for sure. But
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I mean, it's the same thing. It's just that impactfulness. You know what I mean?
I agree. And I mean, like, and going, we'll slide off of video games in a second, but just to go off topic, god dang, when you had NBA ballers and NBA ballers feeling like the story was rags to riches, and then you can unlock people like Shaq and Earl the Pearl Monroe. Oh, that's
Mhm.
times, people. That's 2005, 2006 right there. But yeah,
Right.
those video games. Anyway, back to wrestling. We were talking about a lot of great things with what you're doing with Ring of Honor in your tenure. We've seen a lot of great things unfold. Speaking of great things that are unfolding, Mr. Shane Taylor, EC3. I got to say, the back and forth between you two has been absolutely amazing. Now, EC3, when he was Derek Bateman in the WWE, Chicks in America, he's on NXT's with Daniel Bryan. Then he gets the haircut that we all know, love as EC3, has the one match with Big E on NXT. Then he's gone from WWE. Then we see his run in TNA Total Nonstop Action Wrestling as Dixie Carter's nephew, the whole nine. It's just encapsulates and captures really what we see with Ethan Carter III as the character and the wrestler. He's doing the thing where he's controlling his narrative. He's over here in Impact with Moose, and now he's over here in ROH with you. I gotta say, the evolution of that man from character-wise and how he's grown over the years, I cannot wait to see what keeps going with y'all.
I'm excited. You know what I mean? I think life is about growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a quote from Ali, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but if you're the same guy at 50 that you were at 20, then you wasted 30 years. You know what I mean? So to see his growth from when I knew him when I was first getting started,
Mm-hmm.
to see the evolution that he's gone through, to see what he's doing now and finding himself, I think a bit more is great to see. I wish him nothing but success, except when he's in the ring against me and my guys. Because at that point, then I just got to beat his ass like everybody else. But outside of that, proud of him.
See, I like what you did there. You're like, I'm proud of him. I'm obsessed. But there's that one little butt there, but if he gets to me, I'm going to stomp him out. See, I like that, and I appreciate that. Well, it's true, and also I know y'all had the thing with the Briscoes, which, by the way, because we were talking about Jay Lethal and him just being, it's real. You want to talk about real? The Briscoes and just their overall ferocity and how they are as people. That's a nice mix with yourself and SOS and everything with the Briscoes and EC3. That's something that a lot of people are going to be really into, myself included.
Man, when the contract got signed, I was excited because obviously Ring of Honor is coming fresh off the Pure tournament, and for the last few months, people have seen Pure Wrestling, and it's fantastic. But I saw this as a chance to sort of give people something different, and with the six of us in that ring, there weren't going to be a lot of wrist locks exchanged in that match. It was going to be the best against the baddest. We're going to see who goes in there, throws bombs, and who's still standing at the end of this. And that's exactly what it was. And anytime you're in there with the Briscoes, they are so physical, they're so intense, and they're going to bring the best out of you, or they're going to run you over. Those are the choices that you have. You either rise to the occasion or you drown. And me and my guys, we're not about to drown.
I look at it from a stance of like you, dude, you rock the mic and you rock it in ring. So I'm just like everything that's been built to that. It's just great storytelling. And like you mentioned, like the Pure Championship, I would mention Jonathan Gresham, great pure wrestling. But sometimes you gotta have that mix of like, we mentioned Mollywop, but the nice thing of just the brawl aspect too. And I think that's what encompasses a lot of the Briscoes matches, like you mentioned. It's the ferocity, great wrestlers, but god dang, when it's time to brawl and nut up, it's great stuff. And I think that really just shows the storytelling that you guys are telling.
Man, but that's what I mean about giving our fans different styles and more variety, right? A lot of people, myself included, right? When you look at like boxing, I love watching Floyd Mayweather fight. The slick defense, the ability to score, to hit and not be hit, the pure sweet science, the technique of boxing, right? That's fantastic. But at the same time, going in there, round one, 10 seconds in, and knocking somebody on his ass and putting his lights out is also very entertaining. You know what I mean? So I like to do a bit of everything. Obviously, I'm looking to put everybody's teeth out of their mouth, right? So my style is to go in there, go straight ahead, put you on your ass, and see if you get up. See if you want to get up.
All right, I'll mention a boxing reference in a second, but just tying into wrestling, I think you can also equate with this me as well. I'm going to mention two more legends. When you would watch Finley and William Regal wrestle, great technicians, right? Just hold for hold, they can go. But god dang, when Finley would brawl, when Regal would brawl, it's pure art.
100%. I mean, and again, the technique is there. They could go hold for hold with anybody in the world. But when it's time to throw them hands, it's time to throw them hands. Simple.
Exactly. And God rest his soul, my grandfather. Here's the boxing reference. So, as a kid growing up in the 90s, I'm not going to lie. I remember the day after the news because we had the Mike Tyson, of course, Evander Holyfield bout. And on the news, I remember as a kid just watching the fact that this man got his ear bit off. And I'm like, oh my God. And again, it's a lot to process and take in as a 5-year-old. And then later on, because that whole thing was iconic. I remember also Lennox Lewis doing what he did to Mike Tyson later on. So that's like some of my earliest memories. And of course, Muhammad Ali, Layla Ali, and so many of the greats that we've seen in boxing. But one of my first memories, again, a lot to take in as a 5-year-old. Next day on the news, here's this man's ear bitten off. What's going on? But as of course, later in life, you understand what's happening. But yeah, those are some amazing times in boxing, right? Late 90s, 97, 98. Good Lord.
Crazy times in boxing. Crazy times. And here's where, right? Like I've watched boxing since I was a kid. Right, yes. Studied it. This is the part about where the media comes into play, because what most people don't know is throughout that whole first fight and the rematch, Holyfield is headbutting the shit out of Tyson the entire fight. That's how Holyfield fights. He leads with his head, so he's headbutting the crap out of Tyson, and Tyson just got fed up and was like, "All right, man, like if you're not gonna stop." The ref's not gonna stop. I'll stop it. And so that's what happened. But what gets lost and nobody ever talks about, well, Holyfield was headbutting him for like 18 rounds. Like, I mean, what are you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? But regardless, not the choice to make. But that just once as I was a kid, I would always ask like, why is nobody talking about the fact that he was headbutting him? You know what I mean? But then you learn as you get older, like, oh well, that's not the juicy part of the story. The juicy part of the story is the ear bite.
Of course. And I think also, first and foremost, that's instinct and that's adrenaline right there. I mean, also, yeah, people don't talk about the headbutt. It's mostly the ear thing. But yes, if you go back and watch the fight as I did in later years, I mean, you see some mean old headbutts there. And I'll be honest with you, my first inkling of Evander Holyfield live was okay, so Madison Square Garden. I don't know if you remember around this time, and I'm taking people back. Do you remember in 2007 when Saturday night's main event started coming back and they did the thing where MVP and Matt Hardy were having the feud of, anything you can do, I can do better, which was entertaining at the time. But they brought in Evander Holyfield to box Matt Hardy at Saturday night's main event. I'm watching this live, and they brought in Michael Buffer, which I popped for because I love Michael Buffer. But I'm like, God dang, I'm about to watch this, and I'm just like, okay, well, we've seen in life, Antonio Inoki, Muhammad Ali, and everything involved with professional wrestling and boxing and the tie-ins there. But that was like my early inkling. I don't know if you remember that. I'm taking it back to '07 for the people. Good Lord.
Oh man, that like to see those images and those guys, man, just brings everything together on why I love both sports.
Mhm.
And you gotta love when you get to make those moments like that.
Now I gotta ask you because I mean we've seen a lot of mixed martial arts as well and the tie-ins and correlations and relationships. Me personally, I love it. Like when Ken Shamrock, who now just went to the Impact Hall of Fame, did his thing in the Attitude Era. We've seen Tank Abbott in WCW. We've seen Dan the Beast Severn. We've seen Ronda Rousey. We've seen so many people and Shayna Baszler and Jessamine Duke and so many people crossover from MMA into pro wrestling. Like for me, like you mentioned, like you love boxing and professional wrestling. Like I love the tie-ins from MMA and pro wrestling from Brock Lesnar. I know CM Punk dabbled into it a little bit as well. But that's amazing just to see the crossovers over the years, right?
Oh, for sure. And especially with the fan bases, right? Because the fan bases years ago couldn't have been more separate,
Mm-hmm.
right? But now we're starting to see so many of those fans cross over and vice versa. So many of their fighters now imploring pro wrestling tactics to make money, to build their fights and things of that sort, right? So it's interesting to not only see the effect that those sports have had on pro wrestling, but the effects that pro wrestling have had on their sport as well.
100% agree. And I mean, I think my first incarnation or inclination, if you will, of MMA and pro wrestling. Okay. Remember when in 2008, when they were doing the thing with Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe for the TNA title, and there was, I think Kurt Angle called into an interview with Chuck Liddell because he wanted to like fight Chuck Liddell. And I'm like, oh no, Kurt. No, because I know what's gonna happen from this. Remember when Kurt Angle like wanted to dabble into MMA? I know this is taking it back. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was like, Kurt, what are you doing? And I still think about that because that clip came up and like as a YouTube suggestion. You know how YouTube gives you suggestions out of nowhere out of the wazoo. And I'm like, I still think of that. But I mean, as much as I love Kurt Angle, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's Chuck Liddell. It's Chuck Liddell. It's like guys like him, Randy Couture, the whole
I
nine.
mean, yeah, it is. You know what I mean? But at the same time, there's not many wrestlers ever that have been better than Kurt,
That
right?
is very true. Okay.
And Chuck's whole thing was his ability to avoid takedowns and get back to his feet to stand and bang. You can't knock somebody out if you're not standing up. You know what I mean? Which I mean, I know you can. There's situations in which it's possible. I don't want people like, well, you can do this. Like, all right. But what I mean is it's very unlikely for you to get knocked out or for Chuck to be able to do what he wants to do if he's constantly on his back, right?
Sure.
And I don't know about you, but I feel as though I'd be safe putting money on Kurt Angle out wrestling Chuck Liddell. You know what I mean?
I agree with you on the wrestling. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you can teach Kurt to strike close distance. You can teach him submissions. You can put him in a situation where, if he can get close and he can get that shot and keep Chuck down, he's got a shot at beating him. So, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Kurt wins that fight.
I was about to ask Brock Lesnar about Kurt Angle taking him down. Ask Brock Lesnar about that.
Man, right? So, and at that time, you're talking about a Brock that was 300, 315, jacked to the gill. And now you're going into a 205 Chuck Liddell. Please.
All right.
Listen, that's tough, bro. You know what I mean?
I feel you. Wisdom right there. Courtesy of Shane Taylor. Wisdom.
Oh.
I love it. Oh my goodness. Now, Shane, I got to say this to you about it much as well. But we talk about professional wrestling because this is what I just want to talk about as overall. Isn't it amazing? Because from the 90s, we've had the Monday Night Wars. We've seen WWF, WCW, ECW inclined in there as well. But from the mid 2000s with WWE and then Ring of Honor on the rise and TNA. And now we have companies like AEW, MLW, NWA, everything being produced on YouTube with these contents and everything. Isn't it just amazing just to see the variety that we have now in professional wrestling, just professional wrestling and the growth that we see in 2020?
It is, man. And that's the best part, right? Because there's so many options, which means there's so many avenues for the performers to make money, for fans to be able to see their favorite performers and support the stuff that they like. My thing is there's so much stuff out there. Concentrate on the stuff you like.
Mm-hmm.
Concentrate on the stuff you like. Support that. There's no need to bash any other person or any other company, right? If you don't like them, don't watch. Turn the channel. Go watch what you want to watch. You know what I mean? But like the negativity about it, you know what I mean? Like you hear quotes like nobody hates wrestling more than wrestling fans. And it's like, man, like for people who say they love this so much, there's an awful lot of bullshit and complaining and like tearing other people down in the sport that you're supposed to love, right? So support what there's a million options now. Support who you like. Watch what you like. And if you don't like it, don't watch.
First and foremost, you actually took the words right out of my mouth because even in the social media aspect with the bullshit, because I see people on Twitter, Facebook, or what have you argue about the Wednesday, well, they call it the Wednesday Night Wars with AEW and NXT, but I look at it like this. If you like NXT, watch NXT. If you like AEW, watch AEW. There's so much stuff out there, and also at the end of the day, we're professional wrestling fans. Just enjoy it for the art that it is. Just enjoy it because there's too many people that want to just bicker and say one company's better than the other. I'm like, at the end of the day, we're professional wrestling fans, and there's so many outlets and avenues. Let's just enjoy it for what it is, you know?
Facts. You know what I mean? Facts. And if someone's like, hey, well, what about this? You're like, it's just not my thing. Well, why? It's just not, man. Let's move on. You know what I mean? Like you like what you like. I like what I like. There's preferences. There's preferences for a reason, right? Just let people enjoy the stuff that they enjoy.
Of course. And I also look at it from the social media aspect. There's pros and cons about everything. I mean, we've seen a lot of things go down with what's going on in the world. We're not going to get too political on this show, but we've seen it. We know what's going on with the world on social media. But it's one of those things where it's just like, all right, people need to calm the fuck down. And excuse my language, but people need to calm the fuck down, you know?
I mean, there's a reason that so many people are upset, but again, it's about perspectives, right?
Yes.
It's about experience and perspectives. You can't argue emotion and belief with people, right? Because
Yep.
those are things that they subscribe to, right? You can argue facts, and me as a person, I like to talk about history, right? People like to look at today in a vacuum, like this shit just started today or this past week, and I'm like, no, the actions we took from this era transferred to this era, and then actions in that era compounded with those and got us to this era, and then this era is now why this is happening, right? But so many people who don't have those experiences or have that knowledge or have the empathy or the care to go back that far and understand these things don't want to hear it. So now you're faced with groups arguing over emotion and over their beliefs as opposed to reality and facts. And so no one's ever going to win that argument, right? But man, it's just now, things are changing, and now more than ever, we have to realize that we're in this shit together, man. Like we have to be. If not, you know what I mean? It's not going to be good for anybody.
I got to say this first and foremost, since you also did talk about history. I think I messaged you. I'm like, dude, this is why I love you because you always put like facts into everything, and I can tell you're passionate about the world and just everything that goes on to it. So I got to give you much respect and props for that because I do love your passion for history and everything. So much love to you on that, Shane. But just to go back to what you were saying, I'm like, God dang, man, you know what it is? People don't realize like things that happen now, like it all correlates and tie-ins, if you will. It's kind of like they added like, oh, here's a magic wand, poof, it just happened. It's like, no, actually, fact check and look at some shit and look and go back. You know what I'm saying? Just watch how everything evolves, so to speak, if that makes sense.
100%, which is why it's so frustrating when people are like, you can't live in the past. I'm like, the past is where this shit started. I was like, if it wasn't for this bullshit, we wouldn't be in this situation. Like, that's why this shit happened. And the inability to address it then is why these problems continue. You know what I mean? And we can correlate that to wrestling, right? Same with the imagery, right? So you can have, you know, uh, and especially in today's world of what have you done for me lately, right?
Yes.
People want to be able to put a character on TV and have them immediately have the fans immediately relate and understand that character day one, right? And so what that leads is to a lot of laziness with storytelling and character work, right? Because then you just get into sort of those stereotypical roles that I talked about, because so many people only think they know, this aspect of a culture, or this is what they're used to, or this is what is recognizable to them, instead of going in, doing the work and creating new perspectives, new ideas, adding more depth and making people think. That's how you take these things. And especially when you think about like Black World Champions, right? That's how you take, and the more characters that you can make and the more success that they can have, the less, and this is a good thing, the less special it becomes and the more normal it becomes. And the more normal it becomes, the better it becomes for everybody.
Agreed. And I also look at it from a stance to current times. I'm going to say this right now, like the creative and storytelling going into Kofi Kingston and Kofi Mania and everything that really transpired from him beating Daniel Bryan for the title at WrestleMania. Like, I love that because, again, if you're born in the 2000s or you follow professional wrestling, you see Kofi Kingston, he's doing the Jamaican character. He's on ECW. Then they bring him to Raw. And, he's in the Intercontinental title picture. He's in the tag title picture. He's in the U.S. title picture. But he hasn't really gotten up to that level yet. And you just see him for years and years and years. Oh, here's the New Day. Here's this. Here's that. And then you have him finally have that moment at WrestleMania and he shined the brightest. And I think you can agree with me. Like, that's great storytelling and everything that goes into what Kofi has done since 2000 and geez, what, 8, 9, and culminates in 11 years of just hard work and finally obtaining that goal.
Right. You know what I mean? That only proves what I was just saying, right? That everybody of any race, of any background can relate to that struggle, can relate to trying to overcome the odds, can relate to, clawing and clawing, just never really getting that chance, and then trying to capitalize on that one chance that you get, because you never know when it's going to come around again. Everybody can relate to that. So everybody can be entertained. You can market to everybody. But those moments, specifically for the Black community, you have little kids now looking at somebody that looks like them on that stage in that positive and that powerful of a moment. That's inspiring. You see what I'm saying? And there's so many people that see those moments and they're afraid because they think, oh, well, it's leaving out a section of our audience. It's not. You're entertaining everybody. I'm just saying everybody can be inspired, but specifically that's going to hit this group the hardest because they don't get to see that often. So when it happens, it's going to be monumental.
I think what I've always loved about professional wrestling and this thing that we call life, everybody has a story to tell. It's just how you tell the story and it's how you put it to the canvas. And I think people like yourself and people in professional wrestling in general, that's what really makes it worth it and really enjoying for myself and enjoyous for a lot of people. So I got to say, everybody, this is not just you, but everybody in professional wrestling, much love and respect for the stories that you tell. And I think I got to just land it on that, man, because that's much love to you.
Hey, and thank you. We do it for our fans, and this is what we love to do. And for me, um, I'm already on borrowed time. You know what I mean? Growing up from where I came from, I shouldn't even be here. So I'm definitely going to use the time that I have here and my platform to be able to reach and teach as many people as possible.
I got to say this, sir. You are here and you're doing the damn thing. I'm going to put it to you like that. Put it blunt and straight to you. You're doing the damn thing. And I'm loving what I'm seeing. So keep doing you, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man.
You're welcome. Now, before we close out, this is where I step back. And I'm going to say this right now, Shane. Anytime you want to come back on, the overture's here. I'd love to have you back on again for a round two.
Appreciate that, man. Would absolutely love to do it.
And this is where I step back. Mr. Shane Taylor, the baddest man, the whole nine, Shane Taylor Promotions. You know where this is, man. You know what you're all about. Please promote the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's all love, it's respect. Go ahead, sir.
My man, Facebook.com/Notorious Shane Taylor, Twitter and Instagram at Shane216 Taylor. As always, I know these are tough times, but if you're in the merch buying mood, head on over to ROHWrestling.com. Check out the Pro Shop. Plenty of great merchandise there from my guys, Khan and Moses, brand new Soldiers of Savagery t-shirt out right now. Shane Taylor Promotions, t-shirt out right now. Stand for something, bow to nobody.
Boom. Now, I got to say this about yourself. How many times, so you mentioned the Notorious Shane, how many times do people go up to you and just go, no, no, Notorious? That's my nerdiness coming in there, Mr. Shane Taylor. Hello?
Oh. Sorry. I just got a call. I actually got to take that call, too.
Oh, we'll wrap it up here. First and foremost, thank you so much, Shane Taylor, for your time. And that'll conclude another edition of the Beyond the Max. Thank you, Shane.
My man. Thank you.